Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Also, thank you for your service to our nation, United States veterans, and to those who have served in their own nation's militaries around the world. This is the next installment in our Frontline Leadership Professional Development Guest Speaker Series. Today's event is actually extra special because it's being brought to you through a collaboration of both the Panasonic Veterans Business Impact Group and the Black Employee Network. Also in February, we are specifically celebrating Black History Month. Next slide, please. The Veterans Business Impact Group's objectives are to bring our employees together through networking, mentorship, and community engagement while leveraging our own unique military experience and leadership skills to foster better collaboration within Panasonic's workforce. Further, to recognize our community of employee veterans alongside the family and friends of military veterans who support and encourage one another through our shared experiences. In bringing together our unique background of military service, leadership, and dedication, we hope to capitalize on these strengths to better serve our companies within Panasonic, communities, and customers through veteran recruitment activities, career development ideas, professional development opportunities like today, growth and retention. The Veterans Group is open to all Panasonic employees who are interested in joining us. If you are a United States military veteran, please reach out to us to self-identify. We will display the email address in the next upcoming slide. Next slide, please. Again, if you're a United States military veteran, reach out to us by emailing us at this contact information. Alternatively, if you're just interested in supporting this cause and becoming a member, reach out to us as well. All Panasonic employees are welcome to participate. Next slide, please.
Good morning and good afternoon to all on this thankful Thursday. My name is Vinay Ingram. I am a part of the HR Business Partner team, serving as an HR business advisor, not only to the various BUs, but also our Employee DEI Council. I have the privilege of helping to lead our BEN, Black Employee Network, which in real Panasonic fashion is an acronym within an acronym that stands for Black, Latino, African American, African, and Caribbean. I want to thank Chérie and the Veterans Group for this collaboration opportunity during Black History Month, and also a big thank you to Sergeant Major Mack for sharing his story. BEN works to support the growth and inclusion, success, and advancement of our Black employees at Panasonic through programming, professional development, social and community activities. We strive to build a culture of connection, company pride, and positive support through allyship. And so just know that even if you do not identify as, you are more than welcome to join BEN, and you can be a part of more than one business impact group. So the future of the Black Employee Network, Veterans Group, and other bigs truly depends on active participation. So if you're not already a part of our Teams channel, scan the QR code there to join today. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Vinay. Introducing our Veterans Leadership team members. First, Joe Howry is the executive sponsor of the Veterans Business Impact Group. Joe is a graduate of West Point, and he actually served in the United States Air Force. He's currently the vice president of supply chain at Panasonic North America. Our program has just been incredibly honored to have his guidance and leadership throughout. I am Chérie Johnston, as I was introduced. I'm the president of the Veterans Business Impact Group for our group of Panasonic North American companies. I've been with Panasonic Avionics, the aerospace division, for nearly 10 years now. My background education are in international business. My connection to the United States military, my father, my father-in-law, and my spouse were all United States Marines. My former spouse is a retired U.S. Marine that I met at the start of his time in the service, so I was able to walk the full course of that career from the early 1990s until his retirement in 2012. In 2010, our son founded a nonprofit organization to recognize and acknowledge the sacrifices of U.S. military children, which I'm still the volunteer CEO of today. Finally, for almost 5 years, I've been an official community partner to the United States Army. Next is Jared Derensberg. Jared is a former United States Marine who not only served combat tours, but also upon exiting the United States military, continued to carry on working overseas as an employee of our United States State Department. Jared has been with Panasonic Connect for nearly a decade as well, having entered through a special military recruitment initiative that brought in veterans. Jared is currently the vice president of the Veterans Business Impact Group and a passionate advocate for this program. And next slide, please. We're going to turn it back over to Vinay.
Thanks, Chérie. Ben has made a lot of great strides through cultural celebrations, health and financial wellness training programs, professional development chats, and different fun culinary events. And really just wanted to thank each member for their untiring contribution of time and talent, and recognize the leadership team who has really made Ben the success that it is, because it's their unwavering dedication and inspiration that makes me proud to be a part of Ben and be on this team. And we all come from different areas of the business with various experience levels, and it's really a lot of passion driving behind this. And that's why we all just call ourselves leaders. So you don't need to have a title to be a leader. And if you're interested in joining the leadership team, certainly always welcome that conversation. Next slide.
For today's very special guest, Sergeant Major Michael Mack, I'm going to do a non-traditional introduction. Sergeant Major is going to share with you a lot of exciting information and facts from his incredible career as a United States Marine and his follow-on service to the United States government. What I'm going to share right now is more about the character of this humbling leader you are about to meet. I was first introduced to the Sergeant Major actually in the year 2011 when I was working in direct support of the Marine Corps command that he was leading. I worked closely in person with the Sergeant Major across several years' time, so I got to know him and his wife very well. At that time, Sergeant Major was literally the most revered and yet feared Sergeant Major I have ever encountered in the United States Marine Corps. In leading his Marines, his sense of discipline and yet absolute fairness, his mentorship and yet his tough love were constantly present. Sergeant Major Mack is like the parent that many of us dream of having. Don't do as I say, do as I do. And for all of his hard work and discipline, Sergeant Major Mack and his lovely wife and lifelong partner, Charlene, at every single Marine Corps ball I attended, were the first ones on the dance floor leading the fun. I've kept in touch with Sergeant Major Mack over the following 12 years, both as a mentor and a friend. When I needed a letter of recommendation for my MBA program at Chapman University, despite an incredibly high responsibility assignment in Washington, D.C., Sergeant Major Mack took time to stop everything and provide me with the letter that I was accepted into the university on. When I needed assistance with a U.S. Navy SEALs personal situation through my own nonprofit, and I was networking within the military community for help, Sergeant Major took my call. Not long after, I received an email from General Joseph Dunford's wife, Ellen, from her personal email account stating Sergeant Major said I needed her support and giving me her priceless guidance. When you need something done, Sergeant Major emailed the wife of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to help me, a volunteer, to assist a single warrior in need. Now, if that's not an example of a leader, he went straight to the top to solve my problem for me. And most recently, when a mutual friend of ours, another retired United States Marine who worked at the Pentagon, developed an illness, Sergeant Major Mack not only remained by his side until the end of his life, but also handled all of his personal affairs and planned an entire moving memorial service at Quantico that I was able to attend. There are those rare people in life that we meet who, would literally give you the shirt off their back if you asked for it, and that is Sergeant Major Michael Mack. The main thing you need to know about his Marine Corps career and his retirement ceremony from the U.S. military is that he had 7 United States generals attending as guests. If that is not a testimony to the incredible influence that he had across our United States Armed Forces for decades. Next slide, please. Today's discussion is titled Cultivating Wellness and Mental Health in Leadership. This topic is incredibly relevant in today's busy workplaces where the constant stream of emails, telephone calls, meeting requests, and the to-do lists, they appear never ending to all of us, especially for those coming out of slowly from this life-changing COVID-19 pandemic we experienced, where some of us actually lost coworkers, family, friends, but also just such a rapid paradigm shift in our day-to-day routines. More than ever, it's important to seek out the wisdom of leaders like Sergeant Major Michael Mack, and as he will share, check on one another. You know, we're all human beings after all. Next slide, please. The Sergeant Major will be taking open questions at the end of his presentation today, so please begin to place those in the chat box. Without additional delay, Sergeant Major Mack, thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and please take the floor.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. I am honored and truly humbled to be here with everyone today to provide some insights from my personal experience with cultivating wellness, mental health, and leadership, and to celebrate Black History Month. I will be sure to remember what I was taught as a young Marine drill instructor. I was introduced to the 3 B's, and they are be brief, be brilliant, and be gone. Now I can assure you that I can do at least 2 of those 3, and they are be brief and be gone. The being brilliant part, I'm not sure about that. However, my goal is to provide this message, and it resonates with you, our nation's heroes, our veterans, and the patriotic Americans of Panasonic. Before I begin, I would like to take a moment to thank Panasonic for providing this platform for veterans and the Panasonic family for bringing such a broad perspective of many different ideas that affect not only our veteran population, but those who care about veterans as well. Over the years, I have learned that some of the most patriotic Americans that I have met have never served in the military. So thank you to everyone for your efforts to make this an exceptional experience to support our veterans. Today, as we honor those who have served our great nation, I would like to speak with you about 3 specific topics, and they are cultivating wellness, which I believe takes teamwork, your mental health, which involves what gives you peace and joy and what makes you smile. We will also reflect on leadership, which involves how do you take care of your people and accomplish the mission. However, lastly, and more importantly, what is your purpose? I want to begin by saying to each one of you who have served our nation, thank you. Thank you for deciding to wear the cloth of our nation. There are 26 countries around the world where military service is mandatory. However, you volunteered. You walked into the recruiter's office and signed on a dotted line. You swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. There are close to 400 million Americans in the United States of America, and there is less than 1% of the United States population currently serving in the United States military. You are indeed our nation's heroes. You volunteered to be a part of something bigger than yourself. You joined the United States military. Think back to when you went to boot camp, officer candidate school, or one of our fine military academies representing our armed forces. If you were like me, the first thing that I thought of was seeing my Marine drill instructors, tall and lean, running around and yelling, and foreign objects coming out of their mouth. They were yelling commands to do things that I could not even understand, louder than I had ever heard a person yell before. They had razor sharp creases in their uniform, and they were wearing the infamous Marine drill instructor campaign cover. I said to myself, what have I gotten myself into? Now, as I reflect on that experience more than 37 years ago, The most important things that I learned were discipline, mission accomplishment, and teamwork. For me, I feel cultivating wellness, teamwork was the most significant thing that boot camp taught me. Building overall well-being requires satisfactory functioning in terms of one's emotions, body, social network, life purpose, and community. Believe me when I say that during my Marine Corps recruit training boot camp, graduating and getting out of there became my life's purpose. Consequently, teamwork is a combined action of a group of people, especially when effective and efficient. Therefore, supporting others around you in their time of need is cultivating wellness through challenging times. Thinking of your comrade in arms, and in the case of Panasonic, this can be friends, family members, and those co-workers that you may encounter during your workday. For our veterans, selfless devotion to duty is the obligation that we have served our country, were trained on from day one in the military. For some, this may be the very first time you saw, communicated with, or worked with someone who does not look like you. Communities all over the nation give our armed forces their sons and daughters in hope that the military will instill the good order and discipline in them that has made our military ranks the envy of the world. Frequently, I receive questions on what makes a good leader. My thoughts are a good leader knows their men and women and keeps them well informed. I have always tried to lead by learning my Marines, officers, and enlisted because people do not always look like what they have gone through. Also, it helps me to know how they think, what is important to them, so that I can bring the best out of them when I really truly need to. On one occasion, I was speaking with a senior Marine officer about his life and his career. He began his story sharing that his father served and retired from the Army and how great his childhood was. He stated he had a perfect childhood in New Jersey until he turned 7 years old. He stated at 7 years old, his mother and father had gotten divorced, and it changed his life dramatically. He said he grew up in a lovely house with a big backyard and had a very close family. He said one day at 7 years old, he came home from school and the lights were out in his house. He said it was still daytime, so he called his mom at work and told her, and then he finished his homework. When she came home, his mom told him to pack an overnight bag and go around the corner and spend a night at his aunt's and uncle's house because it was a school night. As he was leaving, he said he went past his mother's closed room door and could hear her sobbing through the door. He said that hearing his mother sobbing through the door had such an impact on him that he promised himself at that very moment, at 7 years old, he would ensure that his mother would never need anything again. He said that when he applied to Georgetown University, he had to write an impact statement about something that made a profound impact on his life. So he wrote about that experience as the subject of his statement, and he was accepted into Georgetown with a unanimous vote. He said he was a captain of the football team, the captain of the wrestling team, was a baseball player. He was the class president and was also in the Honor Society. He stated he received college scholarships, but no one offered him a full scholarship. So he went into the Marine Corps to get money for college. At his very first duty station, he was involved in a severe motor vehicle accident where his car had rolled over 5 times. And he walked away from that accident because he said he was wearing his seatbelt. He said that he called a friend to come to pick him up and take him home. He said he had a concussion and fell asleep in his friend's car, and his friend did the right thing and took him directly to the hospital. He got to the hospital and they ran some tests on him because his shoulder was hurting him slightly. It turned out that his spine was fractured. He said they began to cut all his clothes off and called his next of kin. Then they called his command and transported him by medevac from Yuma, Arizona Regional Memorial Hospital to Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego, California. They flew both his parents to California because they did not know how severe the fracture of his spine was for the first 2 days. It turned out that he had a fracture of his C5 spinal cord. He said at that time, some very dark thoughts ran through his mind while he was strapped to his bed so that he would remain stabilized. 2 days later, it was diagnosed that because of the fracture of his spine, he would have to wear a Minerva brace for 10 months to a year and be processed out of the United States Marine Corps. He was confined to the hospital. He had to wear that brace 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to stabilize his spine. He could not bathe. He could not shower for 11 months because he had to wear the brace. And the process began to medically separate him from the United States Marine Corps. He said in those days there were no wounded warrior units in the military, and there was no Wounded Warrior Project. The military hospitals healed you, provided therapy to help you recover, and the branch of service separated you with a medical discharge. At 11 months, he got his brace off and submitted a waiver package to stay in the United States Marine Corps. After he ran a physical fitness test and scored at 289 out of a possible perfect score of 300, the Marine Corps allowed him to continue his service as a United States Marine. His last duty was caring for the wounded, ill, and injured Marines and their families at Wounded Warrior Regiment. If you have not figured it out by now, that Marine Senior Staff Non-Commissioned Officer was me. I stated a bit earlier, a good leader knows his people and keeps them informed, but a great leader always knows himself and seeks self-improvement. The tragedy that I suffered made supporting, caring for, and helping others my personal purpose. That experience gave me patience and knowledge on how to support our Marines with cancer, single leg and double leg amputees, even quadruple amputees, because of what I went through 27 years previously. During my time at Wounded Warrior Regiment from May 2013 through February of 2016, we had over 24 suicides. One of the reasons for the suicides that we learned at Wounded Warrior Regiment that occurred were due to our service members experiencing an alive day. An alive day is the day that a service member or individual was part of a traumatic event, such as an IED blowing up a vehicle and everyone in that vehicle is killed or lost arms or legs, and the individual who is still alive on the anniversary of that traumatic event is suffering in silence. Sometimes an individual was not harmed as bad as the others. However, because they are alive, they are feeling survivor's remorse because their comrade in arms is no longer with us. We have wounded warriors getting intoxicated, taking drugs, getting DUIs, and even committing suicide on their alive day. We even had members stating that they were going to commit suicide on Facebook before committing the act. To combat these tragedies, we ensured all leadership had a command Facebook account. We started a call center that is manned 24 hours a day to this very day, and any veteran can call in to receive professional counseling with no questions asked. We started the Wounded Warrior Roundtable, where all wounded warriors can sit together with their peers, commanding officer, their sergeant major, their command chaplain, and counselors to work through the challenges of their alive day and any other challenges the Marine may be going through. We started the Wounded Warrior Trials, where we bring in our NATO allies from up to 12 different countries that have wounded warriors, and we bring them to Camp Pendleton to cross-train on some lessons learned in treating mental health, education, and working with new technology to assist amputees and their caregivers. We used the Wounded Warrior Games and worked with Prince Harry to establish the Invictus Game to give our warriors and the British Royal Marines the spirit of competition and a purpose to get out of bed in the morning and a reason to stop drinking the day away. Presenting my experiences and offering my voice to you today indeed provides me with purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, mental health is real, and I dealt with it personally. Laying in that hospital bed, all strapped down, not being able to move, not able to eat on my own or use the restroom without assistance, triggered some very dark and destructive thoughts to go through my mind. To get put out of the United States Marine Corps, although medically, and being sent home and possibly as a paraplegic and become an even greater burden on my family, really put me in a very negative place. If you see something that just doesn't seem right and it seems out of the ordinary for someone, say something. If you are experiencing challenges, please reach out to someone to get some help. My experience has taught me that challenges that we may be experiencing today will not really be a big deal to us in a year from now. Leaders, it is your responsibility and obligation to care for the wellness and mental health of the people under your charge. A happy, healthy team member will be a productive team member. You must communicate with them to see how they're doing. During my engagements, I get asked a lot, why did I join the United States Marine Corps and serve for 30 years? When I was in the 10th grade, a Marine recruiter came to our wrestling matches and started working out with us during wrestling practices. Then, as I started to see that only partial scholarships were coming in for me to go to college, I began listening to the things the Marine recruiter was telling us more closely. He spoke of earning money for college and getting paid from the very first day that we started boot camp, getting paid to work out and traveling around the world. The recruiter also spoke about the possibility of retiring after 20 years and not having to work again. Now, keep in mind, this was back during the mid-'80s. However, the two most important things he said to me was that I can claim my mom as my dependent and support her medically and financially, and that I can also try out and be an all-Marine wrestler and compete to represent our country, the United States of America, in the Olympics. From that point on, in 1984, at 16 years old, I was focused on becoming a United States Marine. After I fractured my spine, one of the things the United States Marine Corps would not permit me to do, and that was to wrestle for fear of me re-injuring my spine. However, I was having fun in the United States Marine Corps. I was living the American dream. I recovered from my injury. I was in great shape. I was single, and I was in Southern California. Then my focus turned to what would be my next goal, and that was to become a United States Marine Corps drill instructor. When I checked into drill instructor school, they looked at my medical record And when they saw that I had a fractured spine in my past, they were not going to allow me to attend the school. I told them all I needed was a chance. And I had the distinct honor to train recruits at MCRD San Diego as a drill instructor and chief drill instructor. I was also a drill instructor for a second time at Officer Candidate School, where I trained candidates to be Marine officers at Marine Corps Base, Quantico, Virginia. Afterwards, I served as Company First Sergeant at Marine Barracks, Washington, 8th and I, with the Silent Drill Platoon. I served and deployed to Iraq with the most decorated unit in the United States Marine Corps, the 1st Marine Division. I also deployed to Afghanistan with 3rd Marine Air Wing, Marine Wing Support Squadron 373 out of Miramar, and we were selected as a Squadron of the Year for the United States Marine Corps. I then served as a Sergeant Major of the largest Marine Corps recruiting station in the nation at that particular time, which was Recruiting Station Orange County, California. Our responsibility was from Los Angeles to San Diego and the entire Pacific, from Japan to Guam to Saipan to America's Samoa, and encompassed all of the Hawaiian Islands. My very last active duty post was to serve as a Sergeant Major of Wounded Warrior Regiment of the United States Marine Corps. I was officially retired from active duty on June 30th, 2016. Once I retired, I planned to take 3 months to just relax. After 3 weeks, I needed something to do. So I applied and was accepted and started working as the Director of Veteran Initiatives at a wireless telecommunications company. This was a skill bridge program that sent transitioning veterans to college for 8 weeks to train them in telecommunications, and after completion of the school, directly placed them in a job in the telecommunications occupation. During this time frame, I was asked to go on a local radio show to speak about some of the great things we did at Wounded Warrior Regiment to assist our wounded warriors. After that radio show, I was asked by a federal agency to come to their headquarters and speak to them about the same topic. I went to Crystal City to speak with this federal agency, and at the end of the meeting, they offered me a job to start their program for wounded, ill, and injured transitioning service members to join their agency. It was January 2017, and there was a new administration taking over, and that administration froze all civil service government hiring. I was informed that the agency was moving forward, and if I wanted to, I could compete for the program, and so I did. I went to the library, I got on the internet, I asked for help from some friends, and I started Mack Strategic Solutions, LLC, in 2017. I worked with this federal agency through my own business as a contractor on a 1-year contract that could be extended up to a 3-year contract, not to exceed $1 million. After the first year, the results were very substantial, and I was asked to become a permanent member of their staff and was appointed the Deputy Director of Oversight and Compliance, a GS-14 position for this federal agency. After a year in this billet, in 2018, I was appointed to the position of Director of Oversight and Compliance, a GS-15 position at this agency. This was an amazing job to me with a mission that hit very close to home. The name of the federal agency was a U.S. Ability One Commission, and our mission was to employ the blind and the severely disabled Americans across our nation. My job as the Director of Oversight was to work with my staff and ensure that the 550 agencies in the program were accurately paying, supporting, and treating the 46,000 disabled individuals in this program with dignity and respect. This was an amazing job to me, and it hit very close to home personally because I had an older aunt that was born with Down syndrome. And when she visited our home as I was growing up over the years, she was treated the same as everyone else. And I remember how much she loved going to work. I worked there at this agency until January of 2021 before retiring. After 5 years of dealing with the Northern Virginia traffic and experiencing a 2-hour commute each way daily, also Amazon was purchasing our building, and another factor was the agency was moving from Crystal City to Washington, D.C. It was a challenging time during COVID, and I also needed to have rotator cuff surgery, and that would take approximately 9 to 12 months to recover from. In January of 2021, I decided to retire from the commission. Then I focused on conducting guest speaking events and consulting. I have been honored to speak at the Naval Academy, DTRA, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the United States Marine Corps University, Rockland Community College, United States Marine Corps birthday ball ceremonies, and be honored, as I am today, to speak with you here at Panasonic. Next week, I will be in California to speak at the Wounded Warrior Trials aboard Camp Pendleton, California. Along with guest speaking events, last year I was appointed to the Board of Governors of the Marine Corps Association and Foundation as a member of the Finance and Futures Committee. To stay busy, I am a lifetime member of our local VFW. I am a member of the Marine Barracks Alumni Association. I am a volunteer with our DECA program at our local high school. I am a member of the Marine Corps Finance Association. And lastly, I'm a member of the West Coast Drill Instructor Association. Before I turn it back over to Ms. Johnston, I would like to share a quick personal account with you. On July 26, 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981, which desegregated the armed forces and cast our military as an unlikely champion for inclusion and genuine opportunity and equality. The President's executive order was one of the most sweeping pieces of executive authority of all time. In exchange, our armed forces promised to train, equip, and protect our nation's most precious resources, its people, and only place them in harm's way when our collective national interests are generally at stake. It is this shared sense of sacrifice and responsibility that gives our military the potential to be America's greatest meritocracy, an institution where all individuals are treated equally and shared values and performance drives opportunity. In 2017, I was a keynote speaker for Rockland Community College in Rockland County, New York. They were having a Veterans Honor Society induction dinner. I arrived at my hotel the day before, and the Veterans Affairs Director who invited me informed me that the president of the college, Dr. Cliff L. Wood, wanted to meet with me over lunch. I arrived and was introduced to Dr. Wood, and we headed out for lunch. Dr. Wood was a very kind, soft-spoken individual in his 70s and a Caucasian male. We went to a great Mexican restaurant near the college campus. We were having great conversations about different challenges that veterans face as they transition from the military and about how education could be a great factor in employment. He then asked what I was going to speak about. I told him, and out of the blue, he asked me what I thought of the football player Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the national anthem. I paused for a moment to collect my thoughts, And I told him, as an African-American man, I have experienced some of those same challenges that Colin Kaepernick is taking a knee to bring attention to. Further, I told him that I believe there are areas where we can work together as a nation to raise awareness of racial and social injustice and to execute it in a peaceful manner. That is very imperative, as he did in a safe and legal way to express his thoughts. I also said, as a United States Marine, while stationed at Marine Barracks, Washington, D.C., one of my responsibilities in 2005 and 2006 was to meet the C-130 aircraft to conduct the dignified transfer of all American service members killed in action in Iraq. To see rows and rows of coffins draped in our national flag is something that I will never forget. I said, while I fought in combat for Colin Kaepernick to have the right to peacefully protest, I also fought for the right for someone to have a Confederate flag on their own property. However, for me, I would not condone or practice or participate in either expression of their rights. But I fought for them both to have that right. Dr. Wood then asked if I would include that in my speech the following evening at dinner. I said that I would, and we went back to campus and he invited me to his office. In his office, he had some beautiful photos of his family. He picked up one particular photo and he handed it to me, and he stated to me, "This is my wife." It was a photo of him and his wife, who was a beautiful, distinguished-looking Black woman. He said her name, and he said she was the daughter of former activist and civil rights icon and Supreme Court Judge, Mr. Thurgood Marshall. I was completely blown away. Later that evening, after my speech, he had asked if I had ever heard of the newly opened African American Smithsonian Museum. I said yes, and that my wife and I tried to get tickets, but we were not successful. He stated that if I was interested, his sister-in-law was on the board of directors of the Smithsonian Museums in Washington, D.C., and he would get my wife and I tickets if we wanted them. Of course, I said yes, and the following month, true to his word, Dr. Wood, my wife, and I met with him and his wife at the museum, and he provided us with the tickets. This taught me so many valuable lessons. Never judge a book by its cover. Some of my best allies may not look like you or not look like me. And finally, approach everyone's point of view with dignity and respect. Again, I am honored and truly humbled to spend time with you all today. And thank you to Panasonic and the Panasonic family for all that you do to honor our nation's heroes, our veterans. Ms. Johnston, I'm available for any question that you may have.
Oh, thank you so much, Sergeant Major. I can't even tell you how cliffhanger I felt that story was. I guess I'm a little slow because I didn't get that it was you until the very end. I was surprised when you said that was you. So just fascinating. And I've known you for over a decade, and I never knew that you had had such a serious car accident or about the spine injury that you overcame. That's phenomenal. I'm not surprised in the least, but just phenomenal. And I think it kind of makes my next question a little superficial, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And maybe you can give us an example of another period of time. But looking back throughout your entire career, what would you consider to be the most pivotal moment of transition? And for example, did you ever personally, as a leader, experience that moment of just serious self-doubt or experience deep burnout where you were just questioning is this all worth it? You know, can I go on forward? And maybe you could find a second example. And then if yes, you know, how did you find it within yourself to move forward, to get past that? Like, I've got to go to work tomorrow. I've got to perform. You know, how did you move past that sense of just, like you said, when you maybe momentarily got in a dark place, or you had things that, you know, weren't going to affect you a year from now, but they're affecting you today?
Well, I have to say that one of the most challenging things that I personally had to overcome was when I became the Sergeant Major of Wounded Warrior Regiment. I really had never heard of Wounded Warrior Regiment. I've heard of Wounded Warrior Battalion West and Wounded Warrior Battalion East at Camp Pendleton and Camp Lejeune. However, I did not know that there was a Wounded Warrior Regiment. And the portfolio for the regiment was vast. We had the battalions at Camp Lejeune, Camp Pendleton. We had Bethesda as a hospital, Balboa as a hospital. We had hospitals in Okinawa, Hawaii. Basically, wherever there was a military hospital, we had a presence. And I remember the very first visit that I went on was to San Antonio, Texas. And I walked into a room, and it was one of our Marine Master Sergeants. This Marine had pictures around the room of him as a physical specimen. And this individual was a marathon runner, bodybuilder, Master Sergeant. And when I walked into the room, all I saw was a quadriplegic, no arms, no legs, and standing by his bed was his spouse, who he had been married to for over 13 years at this time. And she saw the reaction on my face because I was not in that environment. I wasn't warned. And to understand that my responsibility was to support this Marine and his family was something that I had to learn to come into contact with, to understand the gravity of what the responsibility was. And that was something that I really wanted to do and wanted to do well, but I understood how challenging it was. So that took me some time to grasp and understand what the responsibilities as a Sergeant Major of Wounded Warrior Regiment was responsible for, because it wasn't the traditional good order and discipline, uniform regs, competency with your occupational skill. It was caring for our nation's heroes and making sure that they have what they need to be successful as they transition to the next part of their life. So that was a learning curve for me, and something that I really had to work hard at trying to master.
Yeah, I think that was such an excellent example. And you made me think about when saying that, you know, I've run a bereavement program with military families for the past 13 years. And it's something that you when you're in that kind of service position, you don't really think about how much it affects you personally, because you're dealing with people who've dealt with 2 decades of war and kind of these life-changing circumstances, like in that example of that Master Sergeant who was a quadriplegic and is facing, you know, a different life moving forward. And I think that is maybe one of those things with the cultivating wellness, you know, is you got to remember, you got to step back and be like, I'm here and I'm here to support you. But at the same time, I need to remember that I'm internalizing and I'm walking through this with you as well. And so, yeah, that was a fantastic example. Thank you so much. Another question, following your incredible Marine Corps career service, and then you successfully moved into civil service, you know, as you personally seem to be like, you keep going strong. What do you want to be, number one, remembered for? Like, what was your legacy during your service to our nation? And then what part of your many activities do you plan to keep doing as you go forward into the future? Like, what is the most important thing to keep front and center for you?
Well, that's a tremendous question. You know, for me personally, if I was remembered as an individual that was there to help other individuals in their time of need, that would be something that I would be very proud of. Moving forward, I really enjoy giving back and being a part of our community. Uh, People in my local community have asked if I would run for a particular office in our town. That's not in the cards for me, I don't think, but I do enjoy working with our high school youth. I volunteer with the Junior ROTC program. I volunteer, Charlene and I went down to Virginia Beach to be a part of the DECA program for our high school as judges. We do different things to support our community with the VFW by, when we had a major storm a couple of months back, we pick up trees around senior citizens' houses and leaning my voice to different topics such as caring for our wounded, ill, and injured and how we can best support our wounded, ill, and injured or veterans moving forward. Those types of activities really bring a lot of happiness to me. I enjoy doing it. And that's where I believe as I get older, my focus will be on more.
I think it sounds like it's just going to continue in line with your lifetime of servant leadership. You've really just mastered that, is just being able to, give back to our nation, to the communities. I want to take a moment and throw two questions out to you from our audience.
Sure.
What leadership skills do you think are the most important for maintaining a strong team culture?
Oh, what a great question. I really, really believe in keeping your team informed and knowing yourself and seeking self-improvement. Because when your team knows what's going on, they can adjust and focus on accomplishing the mission. And you, as a leader, can take care of your people. I've always believed that taking care of your people and mission accomplishment is primary, and everything else will work itself out. When your team knows that you believe in them, that you're there to support them, that you're providing them all the necessary tools, whether it's school, whether it's information, whether it's a particular program that's going to help them accomplish the mission, when your team knows that you're supporting them, they'll go through a brick wall for you. And I have felt that way about some of my leaders. General Dumford, when I worked with him, when I deployed under him, when I deployed under General Mattis, they were the type of leaders that said, what do you need to accomplish the mission? And you get that and you support your people, and everything else will work itself out.
Excellent. Excellent. And another question, please, before we let you go. Thank you for your leadership and service to our country. Alex is asking, what advice would you give the next generation of young leaders who are considering military service?
What a great question. I absolutely believe that serving time in our military teaches you so many things. It teaches you about teamwork. It teaches you about working together with people who don't look like you. It gives you direction to set your goals and then work with others to accomplish your goals. You can have team goals, you can have individual goals, and it teaches you to work with others while you're accomplishing those goals. And at the same time, you can get your education, you can see the world, you can challenge yourself with different opportunities that presents itself as you move up the ladder. So I would always advise any young individual, if they have the opportunity to join our military, whether it's for 2, 3, or 4 years, that individual time learning yourself and building teamwork with the team that you have around you, such as individuals that I went to boot camp with back in 1986, I am still friends with to this day.
Wow, that's incredible. I think that's one of the things that's hard to sometimes communicate outside of the military community is just the bonds that you form. Like you said, I'm still close friends with the gals that were living on my street in 1994, 95 when I was pregnant. And, you know, my husband was deployed for 8 months. And so I was pregnant alone, gave birth alone, but those were the women who were my tribe. They were at the hospital
Absolutely.
with me, you know, so we're still friends today. And just amazing to watch, you know, how their spouses, you know, stayed in and where they went and where they served. I can't thank you enough, Sergeant Major. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump to the next slide because I want to share all these wonderful, wonderful photographs of both you and your lovely wife, Charlene, together. And just a genuine, heartfelt thank you, Sergeant Major Mack. On behalf of Panasonic, you know, we truly appreciate your time today and meeting with us just to share your thoughts, your experiences, and the wisdom that you've garnered throughout just your incredible military 3 decades and then a civil service career. I know that as I shared, every time we speak, I always leave feeling a renewed sense of personal motivation and purpose. I know that everyone who viewed this today will be experiencing that as well. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
You are welcome. It was my honor and pleasure.
I'm going to jump to the next slide, please. I'm just throwing this in, and this was so timely today with Sergeant Major Mack's you know, some of the experiences he shared. The VA has set up a crisis line for veterans and their loved ones. Dial 988, then press 1. Share this around, you know, do a check-in with a friend and share this. And then next slide, please. And just a few more amazing photos. I'm going to leave that there for a second so you can take in. I absolutely love the drill instructor photographs. It's the motivator. So thank you again, everyone, especially Sergeant Major Mack, for joining us today. Everyone have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you for having me. Semper Fi.